Wow, you guys are in for a treat.
I think this is arguably my favorite episode
Of
the last
2024.
season, the last year. Well, it's easily the best one for 2024. No offense to any of the other guests that we've had, but this one really stood out for me. I almost don't even know where to begin. Leanne is just such a bright light, you know? And I love what she's built, and I love how she's an entrepreneur who decided, oh, I can do this. And the conversation we had about how she launches her endeavor, Plauzzable.com, was so informative, and it was funny to talk to her. And everything, all the stories she tells, the funny things she says, the way I embarrass myself, it was all pretty darn fun.
We both liked when you froze on the screen for about 2 minutes.
Yeah, there's definitely a glitch in the matrix during this show,
Yeah.
for sure. But fortunately, I don't think it impacts the value. Like, I
Oh,
wasn't the distraction, and so much times technology becomes a distraction like that. It just flowed, and we even were like, hey, we ended up doing more than an hour, which it didn't seem even like it went by in a blink of an eye, and I think it will be for the audience.
yeah, and you just mentioned technology. What I think's fascinating with this insight in her platform, Plauzzable, is as a stand-up comic, she was saying some things about what she's developed that were like, oh, yeah, like that's what a comic wants as part of the environment. So not only is there the technical thought going into it, but there's the creative element going into it.
Yeah, she's really hit on something that's great, and it's clear it's just going to grow and become more and more of a venue for both established comics as well as up and coming comics, and I love that. Um, Before you get into the episode, be sure to click the subscribe button. Also, go to our website and check out our merch and order some merch. And remember that every time you buy something on mopedoutlaws.com, we make a donation to the Compton Cowboys, which is a really important organization that helps the people of Compton gain skills in the arena of horse handling and what it takes to do the work, to have livestock, and to have a different view of life other than the concrete jungle. And both Greg and I have chosen that charity because it really has meaning for us, and we really want to support it. And we were able to do a little bit last year, but we really want to up our game on behalf of the Compton Cowboys. You'll love this episode. I look forward to the next one. See you soon.
Sis, hallo?
Blijven.
Stuur zeker wegen them.
Yo iets niet, joh.
Two outlaws on the lam, taking the back roads through America.
You can't drink enough coffee for this show.
And now it's time for Monday Madness with the Moped Outlaws, Greg and Mark.
And we're live with Leanne Linsky laughing in the background of our intro.
Hey!
Welcome to the Moped Outlaws, the place where we will take you for the ride of your life. Hang on to your hats, ladies and gentlemen, or your headphones, whatever. And be sure to check out Plauzzable.com.
Yeah.
You will be impressed. Whether you're an audience or a comic, you are in for it, for sure.
I have questions about that.
Good thing. It's a podcast. There better be questions.
All right, good. So, Leanne, what have you found works for online comedy, stand-up comedy? Like, what have you integrated into Plauzzable? We're getting an echo.
Yeah.
We're good now. Okay. Yeah.
So, what have I created in Plauzzable?
No. More. There's a Zoom stand up here in San Francisco, and I've checked it out a couple of times. It seems like there's a definite challenge to bring that live comedy vibrance to a Zoom environment.
I agree. And that's actually why I created Plauzzable. So back before COVID, I started doing some mics online and I was using Zoom. And although it's fantastic at bringing people together from, remote areas, I mean, it definitely did its job during the pandemic. But when it comes to comedy and entertainment, to your point, it does present new challenges for entertainers. And I was like, wow, there's so many benefits to this. I don't believe I can replicate in person. Like, I think there's a magic to being in person that's just human. And that is always going to be the thing, right? But how can we make that experience online better? So with Plauzzable, we don't have the audio delays or cutouts, because one of the biggest complaints that I heard was that comedians would always get this delay and they'd have to wait, and that changes up your cadence, your timing, everything. It kind of throws a wrench and sucks the energy out. And also there's one-way audio, so if someone speaks, nobody else is speaking. But on Plauzzable, we changed that, and you hear everybody as though you're all in the same room. So if multiple people are laughing and one person's talking, you hear all of that at the same time. And so that makes a big difference. The other thing that I think makes a big difference is how someone's hosting an online room. Makes a huge difference in the energy. And I think that goes for any event, whether you're online or in person. How you host, greet people, welcome people, take care of your housekeeping can really influence the experience overall.
That's very cool. So you had stand-up experience before you launched Plauzzable, or even?
Yeah. So I took my first comedy writing class back in 2001. So 2001, somewhere in there. It's been a long time. Yeah.
You went up on the stage to open mics and?
Oh yeah. I'm originally from Illinois, and I went to school in Vegas and college. I finished college in Vegas, and I ended up staying in Vegas for 16 years. And so while I was there, I started taking these comedy classes, and I performed. I took improv. The Second City had a training center in Las Vegas. So I took all of these classes, performed all the time on my weekends and evenings and stuff outside of my day job. And then after 13 years of working for corporate America, I was laid off, and my friend was like, hey, I'm getting a sublet in New York City. Do you want to come? And I'm like, well, think about it. He goes, you have an hour. I was like, oh, an hour. So I went outside, went for a walk, came back. I'm like, okay, I'm coming. And a month later, I packed 2 suitcases. So when I got to New York, I ended up immersing myself in classes at UCB and Magnet Theater and all the things, comedy. And then I started running an open mic, which I ran an open mic for 7.5 years in New York City. And then my last year in New York, I was producing weekly shows. So I think I produced 42 shows that year. Wow. And on top of getting booked in other gigs. And then I moved to the West Coast. I continued producing shows. But I found myself spending more time in traffic. And so that's why I ended up taking things online. And I missed the camaraderie I had with my East Coast colleagues and fellow comedians. And so I started doing things online, and then COVID happened. Right. And that presented all the new challenges, and even how the screen is laid out. Because if you're in gallery view, I'm sorry, but I'm watching the most interesting person, and it's not always the performer. Whoever is walking around in your house, I'm checking out your house,
Right.
Whoever thinks their camera's off and they start taking their clothes off, I'm probably watching that person. So, yeah.
So Plauzzable is a created platform? You're not using Zoom or some other? It's your own platform.
It's
wow.
my own. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
can you talk a little bit about what it took to develop that and the investment that you have into that? You're an entrepreneur as well as a comic and a producer. So what did it take to build that?
Like an act of God. It was many years. I am not someone in my parents' garage who is an overnight, look at me. I went in the garage this weekend and created something. I wish, but that's honestly not how it works. So I had this idea, like I said, before COVID. In fact, in 2014, at the very end, 2015, when I moved to California, I had considered doing everything on Skype. People were like, Skype? I'm like, yeah, that's silly. How am I doing that? And then I had been using Zoom for work. I had been working remotely since the end of 2014. And so I'm like, I'll just do it on Zoom. But when I created Plauzzable, I was like, I cobbled together like my own website and this scheduling feature and this and that. And I cobbled all these things together. And I'm like, not everybody has these skill sets. You know, when I talk to comedians, they're like, I just want to show up. I want to do my comedy. So I'm like, but how do we kind of make it easier, more accessible? And so I actually went back to school. I got my master's in innovation and entrepreneurship during COVID. I went back to University of California, Irvine. And from there, I got some mentors and I said, I really want to create this. I'm a non-technical founder. How do I find the right people to share my vision with and hire these people to build it? Because although I'm like, oh, I just need a full stack developer, they are not all the same. Like that is a huge sweeping generalization I quickly learned. And so it took me, after I graduated, I got accepted into an incubator, which is for like early stage startups, like where you haven't really built anything. You've kind of tested it with an MVP, a minimum viable product, like what I had been doing before COVID. And then they kind of, you know, give you resources and people to kind of like point you in the right direction. And so I was involved in that. And then from there, I got accepted into an accelerator, which is like the next stage. Like you go from incubation, you hatch, and then you get a little further with an accelerator. It's very laboratory-like.
You're going
right?
to provoke all the clone conspiracists now.
Yeah,
This whole
yeah.
thing.
At
It's
the
really
end,
a clone of you, isn't it?
yeah, I'm going to Scooby-Doo you and rip off my face. Like that would be gross.
Yeah, we'd have a different podcast.
But anyway,
Yeah.
you went from the incubator into the accelerator.
Accelerator, yeah. And I got funding and I hired, it took me a long time. I was ready to hire, but it actually took me quite a while to find the right people to hire. And I found a fantastic team who I still work with. And they've been amazing. And they're great because they understand my vision. And they're, you know, when I met with various people, they're like, why don't you just strap a camera to a back of a chair in a club and stream it? I'm like, okay, you're solving nothing for anybody. Like people are already doing that.
Right.
So yeah. So anyway, yeah, it's been a long journey. And we launched in December with the ability for people to create like their comedian profile. And so a fan can log in, tell us about what kind of comedy they like so we can eventually make recommendations and everything. They can filter their searches when they look at the talent directory. They can filter by what kind of comedy they like and see those comedians populate. Or they can do the same thing when they look at the show listings. And all shows happen in real time. It's not pre-recorded because then you just go to YouTube. But this all happens in real time and you can see and hear the rest of the audience and they can see and hear you and the performer. The performer is performing for an online audience. And we don't have gallery view per se, because if I'm on stage as a comedian, I can typically see a couple of people in the front row. I don't focus on all the people at once. That's weird. Like that would be very hard to do. Also, lights in your eyes. So the way we set up the screen layout is designed for that. You see enough people, a handful of people, but you don't have to click and go to another window. We have it on a scroll, so you can scroll with your mouse or your two fingers on the trackpad.
So if you do situational comedy, you can get at the whole audience through that.
Yeah, totally. If you want to do crowd work, you can do that. You can bring people to and from the stage and give them focus.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so we made it so that the performers are always anchored on one side of the screen and more dominant than the rest of the room so that it doesn't take focus. So if you do get someone in there Blair Witching you, it's not as distracting as otherwise. But we also, the comedians don't have to ask me permission. Hey, can I do a show? All the tools are there. You just create your free account. We give you a free profile page so you can share it like you would your website. We even added a place where you can promote your in-person events if you choose, on your personal profile page. But everything that you do on Plauzzable goes into the show directory so that everybody, all the fans on Plauzzable and the other comedians can access it and have access to that. And then you have ticketing services, so you can set your own ticket price. If you're wanting to sell tickets because, contrary to popular belief, a lot of comedians just don't ever get paid. And when we do, it's a burger and a beer or, some gas money or maybe some tips. And that's not sustaining for people. So,
I think it's important to jump in here and tell people that if you go to Plauzzable, PLAUZZABLE.com and sign up now as an audience member, I think you're performing tonight, the 15th, aren't you, Leanne? Don't you have a show tonight on Plauzzable?
On Monday nights, yeah. So
this will air on the 15th.
Mm-hmm,
That's today for listeners. So go to plauzzable.com right now, sign up as a fan, as an audience member, and see her show tonight, 6:30 p.m.
Depending on your time zone.
Yeah, Pacific time. And that's PLAUZZABLE.com.
Yeah, 5 p.m. Pacific.
5 p.m. Pacific.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, casual comedy. And it's an open mic. We have a group of regular comedians who come in there who are quite hilarious from all over the country and sometimes internationally. We have a lot of comedians from Canada. Our Comedian of the Year, we ran a monthly contest. And then at the end of the year, all the monthly winners competed for Comedian of the Year title. And the audience voted for the winner. And she's from Japan. Wow. And so it's really cool to see people.
Not just you doing an hour. You're going to actually have a whole array of talent that you host.
Yeah.
Are you going to do a set though?
Yeah, I usually do a set. Absolutely. And I usually open and do a set and then bring each comedian to the stage and they each do 5 minutes and work out their material. Yeah.
I think we're going to have to modify our final question today, Greg.
No, we don't. We could have we could have one with it. But so how do you let someone who's on the stage know like 1 minute or 30 seconds, wrap up time?
I yell. No, I gong. No, I don't do that. So I
do that the screen.
I actually have. You guys are familiar with OBS?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I use OBS. Like I'm running my camera through OBS. And for people who are listening, if you don't know what that is, it's a broadcasting software that you can access a free download of, and you can do a really cool thing like this. And then I put this up. My comedian comes to stage. I don't take focus anymore. And then at their time, what happens is you'll see at 1 minute, they get the light. Okay. So it kind of flashes and they get the light, the background turns color. So it's not distracting completely to the rest of the audience. They're just like, oh, look, the screen changed, or they don't even notice it most of the time. Actually, a fan recently asked me, how do they all know that their time's up? So, that happens. And I bring myself back to the forefront and take focus again. Yeah.
And for those of you just listening, she was able to manipulate her visual screen so that lights appeared, she got smaller, etc.
Yeah.
OBS is a free software for online broadcasting systems. It's available online for free.
She said that. We're not selling OBS.
But somebody probably wasn't listening to me.
Yeah, like me.
You don't want to put any fingers, but so how challenging is it for you to have your CEO hat on and then suddenly your comedic hat, and are you able to integrate the two?
Yeah, great question. I'd like to say, oh, it's so easy. And the truth is it's not. It's even way back when I was office manager for Magnet Theater, I would be in the office all day doing all the admin stuff. And then at night I was performing, and then the owner would be like, hey, Leanne, there's a customer on the phone, like a student on the phone who needs something. I'm literally next to the stage about to go on stage. And I'm like, what? Yeah, it's really not easy to do. And especially with tech, because I want people to have a really good experience. And if a lot of other comedians are, they're like, oh, well, I'll book you in my show. And I'm like, oh, if I show up and I'm doing a set, I can't always be on the phone doing support if someone's having trouble logging in for the first time, or if they don't know what to do. And And so, yeah, it's been challenging sometimes, but as an entrepreneur, honestly, I have to wear all the hats all the time. Yeah.
There's a revenue point at which you can start to hire some IT and stuff. How far away are you from that? Is on a percentage basis? You don't have to disclose your revenue, but like, are you a year out from that? Or are you 6 months out from that?
Farther than I want to be. Yeah, farther than I want to be. Yeah, that's kind of been a moving target as I go through because, in my mind, everything should have happened yesterday. But the truth is a lot of this takes time, and it's a journey. I think it's kind of like, honestly, it's kind of like writing my one woman show or writing jokes or writing a new set. It's constantly evolving, and it's no different with tech. I think tech is kind of an art in itself because I can create something, but now I have to go get feedback and see how it really works in the real world for all of my users. And then, I make a point, if I'm going to make changes now, like I reached out to a number of my comedy fans. I want to know about your experience. Where are you running into challenges? What confuses you? And I sit and I go through screen by screen and I get their feedback. And then I ask another one. And it's such an important part of the design process. So, although I think, I checked this box, I'm ready to do the next thing. And then the people will flood in. That's not always the case. I'm like, I created a roadblock or, now this comes up. So to be honest with you, I mean, I have my forecast and things like that out there, but I do update them regularly because the more we put out there and the more users we get, the more we learn how to do things better.
Did you face misogyny and resistance as you launched this in the startup process? What was your startup experience like from the perspective of patriarchy?
Yeah.
And that was funny.
You can just say yes and leave it at that if that's what you want to do.
Yeah. In weird ways, and the other thing that I wasn't anticipating, like, I used to work for a construction company, a home builder for many, many years. So, and then comedy is very male dominated and things like that. But what I do find interesting is like, I'm in my 50s. And so in some ways, I think people are like, oh, you're a little bit older. You're not an idiot. But nope. Like, they're like, oh, you do comedy. You show up with lobster claws as hands. What do you know about business? So there's sometimes people come in with assumptions based on not knowing what I've done in the past and that I have a lot of business experience or I have degrees or I have an education or I have common sense. So yeah, I mean, I can't lie. There has been that, yeah.
And what role did having a great sense of humor play in smoothing over those challenges?
Yeah, that's
it definitely helps. It probably could have helped more if I weren't in the fetal position, like kicking and screaming. So, no, honestly, it does play. It's not surprising. I don't expect it anymore, but so it's disappointing when it does happen. And just when I think that I have a different way to approach those situations, I find myself in another situation and I walk away going, how did I let that conversation take place in that manner? Yeah. So, yeah.
What have you discovered about yourself on this journey with Plauzzable that you weren't expecting?
A lot, honestly. This goes back to, I think there's blessings in not knowing what you don't know. Like, I don't know what I don't know. And thank God for that. Like, because had I known a lot of the challenges that I would encounter or the amount of money that I've invested into this or time and years off of my life, I may have been like, that's a no for me. I'm just gonna let someone else solve this problem. But the truth is, I'm really glad. It is frustrating, It is hard. Entrepreneurship is hard. There is no like, I'm going to do this one thing and it solves all the problems and everybody's going to love it and I'm going to make $3 million a year. Like, I don't know who these people are posting this stuff on Instagram and stuff like that. Like, you podcast, right? You know that it takes time, it takes effort. It is a journey to build your following, to get it right, and to speak to all these people. And entrepreneurship is no different. And I just learned that I'm much more resilient than I had even thought I was. And I'm grateful for my time in comedy and time acting and all the no's. I'm accustomed to no's. So that's like pretty much the norm in my life. So when I do get a yes, that's something to be celebrated. But yeah, I continue to be much more resilient than I thought I would be as I've grown older. I guess I thought that I would be retired by now.
Rich and famous and finished.
Yeah, I don't even care about famous. I just I want to have a garden. I want to go to bed early. I want to actually sleep through the night but as we get older, we have to get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom 18 times. I don't know what that's about. So, yeah.
It takes kidneys, Leanne. It takes kidneys.
Yeah, those kids. I'm going to start eating kidney beans to help my kidneys.
There you go. Yeah.
Plant some of those. Yeah.
So what is your work hours like? What are you like?
Yeah. So originally, I think about it 24/7, not going to lie. What I've tried to do now is really structure my day. So for instance, I get up at 5 a.m., hit the snooze button, but I'm out the door, within 30 minutes of that. Yeah, I'm out the door at 9. I get up between 5 and 5:30, and then I go to the gym and I get a workout in between 6 and 7, come home, have breakfast, and, get ready for my day. So I'm usually at my desk somewhere between 8:30 and 9, and already talking to my team. And then from 9 until probably 6:30 or so, I'm nonstop. And then on weekends, every week, I'm like, I'm going to wrap it up on Friday night and I'm going to take a day off. That doesn't happen. I'm still working Saturday and I'm still working. And if I only put in maybe half a day, I'm like, ooh, half a day, what to do? Oh, laundry, there's that. So, it's glamorous, you guys. Again, these people on Instagram posting these pictures in front of somebody else's car. I don't know what that's like. So, yeah. But that's kind of like how my week is. But if I get important and urgent things that come up, I try to shut down a little bit because honestly, I'm tired at the end of the day. Yeah. I'm so old.
Well, so how do you gear up then for a Monday night comedy?
I get up, walk into the kitchen, do a few laps around the living room, and head back to the old computer.
Get some speed.
Yeah, do some jumping jacks, things like that. No,
Coffee at 9 p.m.
Honestly, my most productive time is in my mornings. So doing meetings and shows and things like that, and later part of the day really works for me because I'm ready to use that side of my brain.
Cool.
So is there an energy that you get from performing still that's like a whole different world than, and is that what kind of keeps you going? It kind of charges the battery up again?
Yeah, it actually does, because when I turn my camera on and everything, I'm on, I'm focused. I shut every other tab down. Yeah, it is like putting my mind in that zone and letting myself be fully present for everybody online with me. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm curious about whether you utilize your Plauzzable performances to develop new material, or whether you do live open mics to work up the next set in your reality and then present it to the Plauzzable audience. What's that relationship? What's your farm approach?
For me personally, I do everything online. I have not been outside in years. I have not. I went outside the other day and talked to people, and it was awkward. I kept forgetting to unmute myself. I'm like,
It's brilliant.
Do you have a desire to actually be live in a club or something like that, or is it just?
no, that's too people-y for me. Someone had me present and do some stuff at a live event. And once I showed up, I'm like, oh yeah, I do love it. And again, I don't think we can really replace the magic of that. If I weren't doing Plauzzable, I'd probably be doing some combination thereof. But this is kind of my baby, and it's kind of fulfilling everything I've needed to do. To be truthful, like, yeah, I still love going out and having those opportunities of in person, but I'm doing totally fine, and satisfied with meeting such a variety of other comedians, performing in a different medium. It's funny because as a comic, we're always like, oh, we want to do late night. We want to do some TV. And then we give someone this in the format of TV. Here's your screen. And they're like, I want to do in person.
Right.
Like, what do you like? What do you think is going to happen when you get on TV? So,
has anyone stepped up to do that with Plauzzable, like a Saturday Night Live or a Monty Python sort of sketch scenario?
Yeah, great question. People are starting. So, a comedian out of Canada, Kelly Zemnikas, she just posted her show listing for midweek late night show. And she has the Velvet Duke, who's a musician, and he's going to be on there with her as her second chair. And then she has another comedian, Monica Hamburgers, as her guest for this. So she's going to be doing like a late night talk show and set up on Plauzzable starting February.
Is it plausible that someone could experiment with the tech involved and have glitches and interruptions and sort of like a Max Headroom scenario where the computer's taking over in essence?
Yeah, totally. Hopefully it's not on our end glitches.
No, like,
yeah.
But the programming's there with this platform you've created where, like, I could have a producer and I'd say, at this mark, let's enter in this piece of video that's going to make it look like things are crashing and this new entity character's going to hit the stage. And
yeah,
OBS, anything is possible, Greg.
That's true.
The limitations of who's the controller of it.
Well, you can have a co-host on Plauzzable. We made it so if I'm hosting a show, I can make someone a co-host so that they actually have the ability to do some of the other things and integrate and bring other people to the stage, mute people, similar to what you might find in other services. But go ahead. Yeah.
That's what I guess my question is how much admin level am I giving as a user coming into the Plauzzable platform?
As a comedian or as a fan?
Well, no, as a content creator. Comedian. Okay.
Yeah. So let's say you're hosting during the live show, you can live stream to YouTube from Plauzzable to YouTube. You can record and publish on Plauzzable or download and then edit and distribute clips however you want. You can change your background settings, your audio and all that. You can integrate OBS, and we have free help sessions for fans and comedians to help you do all of that and to figure it out, because we just had a bunch of people show up the other night and they're all like, oh, can we do this? Can we do that? Because they want to do maybe some long form improv shows and things like that. Right. And we're like, you can definitely do that. And then if they talk about some other features that they might be interested in, I always take note so I can talk to the team, like, how can we implement this? Or what are some, other options if we can't do it right now, things like that, because we want people to explore. We want our users to have fun. So people have experimented with like doing their podcast and then bringing in a live audience as they interview their guests and then doing Q&As and things like that, giving kind of like a VIP vibe to it. doing improv and stand up. Someone just ran a show doing that the other night as something different, which I think is really cool. So you can bring people to and from the stage. You can integrate the OBS, run video. You can, OVS, I can run video. Like I'll give an example for people who see us, but people who hear us, you can do stuff, right? Okay. So I can do all those things. So I can create a whole intro and outro to my shows and bookend it and all of that and decrease the amount of editing or something that I might otherwise have to do. Mm-hmm.
You could take over our podcast.
Yes, I could. You could bring your podcast to Plauzzable and then have your super fans come and join you.
Well, that's very cool. And it's cool to hear that you guys are very open to the experimentation and creativity that people are bringing to Plauzzable.
Absolutely.
I wonder if we lost Mark.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah. You're frozen.
My browser crashed, so I'm going to leave the show and come back.
All right.
Hey.
This is a wild day.
He's very still.
I know. I thought, boy, he's gone into a trance.
You are now a dog. My voice.
It was that clip you had.
Yeah, I had subliminal messages in there. It's like, you are now frozen.
Right. Maybe it's my mic that's echoing. Anyway, now it's gone away. So as you're doing this, you did say this is your baby, and you did say how much of your life this is taking.
Yeah.
It seems like you do, like the seed of all this has been your interest as having a career in the entertainment industry. Do you have time to put energy into other potential avenues?
No, this is really it. I really believe in it. I'm very excited. Just the feedback and the return users that I have and the amazing community that continues to grow on Plauzzable. Like this is the avenue I want to go and continue down. I want to continue making comedy accessible to people outside, all around the world, but in between New York and California and people who don't have as much access to it as others, and bringing those people together.
Are you monitoring our audiences coming in from other countries around the world?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we do have more fans registered on Plauzzable than we do have comedians. We have considerable about more fans on there. And what I'm excited about is the more comedians that are producing and posting shows and telling their fans about it, their fans come in, and then their fans are like, oh, there's all these other comedians on here too. So the other comedians pick up people who might not otherwise have found them, and vice versa. And it kind of builds rather than everybody being into an island onto themselves. Yeah.
Will you still do a show if you have an audience?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Are you kidding me? I've done shows for one person in person. I will not cancel a show. I will never cancel a show. Yeah.
That's
so,
nice.
Yeah. So much fun.
Before we started recording, that reminded me of Cat Williams, because I heard an interview with Cat. It was actually a friend of his years ago who said Cat was starting to put on shows in LA and no one showed up. And the friend was like packing up, well, let's go. Cat's like, no, I said, I'm doing a show. And he did the whole 45 minutes.
Yep.
And then the next week, maybe 2 or 3 people showed up. Did you see that interview with Kat that blew up the internet about a week ago?
No, I did not, but I will certainly go back and check it out. And I love that because that is exactly how I feel. I will not cancel a show, even if nobody shows up. Why wouldn't I continue to perform? Like, that's what I'm there to do, right? It's an opportunity. And if no one's there, then practice. Use that space, use that room, put it on. I remember there was a show at the Grizzly Pear in when I was still living in New York, and I was booked in it. And several of us comedians showed up, obviously, to do the show, but we were there a little bit early, and the bookers were really frustrated. They're like, we can't get anybody in the back room to watch the show. We've been outside barking for, however long. And they're like, we should just cancel. I'm like, no. Like, I am here. Like, let's go. And I remember one of the comedians was like, well, I'm not going to host it. I'm going to go get some spots at a mic or something. And I said, I'll host it. And then she's like, okay, well, I'll do my set. People stayed. I said, I'll host it. And so I said, I'll go get some people. So I went and I talked to some people at the bar, and they said, let's get a drink. We'll come in. So I just went in, we started the show. I'm like, I don't care. If they see something's happening, they're more likely to come in. But if we sit around and wait, they're going to be like, well, what's the hurry? So I just went in, we started the show. By the end of that, I don't know, hour and a half, the place was standing room only.
Wow, that's awesome.
And I got off stage, and you know who gave me a hug?
The comedian who was going to bounce.
Tracy Morgan.
Oh, wow.
I was like, it was really dark, and there was all these people, and people were like, hey, great set. Hey, great night, blah, blah. And someone gave me a hug, and my friend goes, you realize that Tracy Morgan just gave you a hug and said, good job, right? I was like, what? So, and that show is almost canceled.
Yeah.
So you just never know who's going to show up, who that one person is, or who that one person is connected to, or what that one person's, social media post can turn out to be. You never know. But every opportunity to perform, that's what I want to do, and I'm passionate about. Why would I pass it up?
So when you're curled up in a fetal position, ready to just give up on everything, does that experience come to mind and give you the energy to unfold, stand back up?
Yeah, I think absolutely. Even when I was running my mic in New York, I started at the Magnet Theater and eventually moved it to Identity Bar. And then Identity Bar shut down. So I found another place that week, and it was at the M White Bar. And we were there for like a year and a half. And then one day I showed up maybe 40 minutes before my mic, and there was a lock on the door. Their liquor license had lapsed or something. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have all of these people coming for my mic. I got to find a place. So I hopped on the train, went a couple stops down to Lower East Side, and I just started walking along all the busy spots where all the bars are. And I looked for a place that maybe we could wedge in a mic and a stand or something. And there was an empty bar. It was real nice. It was open to the sidewalk. And I walked in and said to the bartender, I said, hey, you need some business? He's like, yeah. I go, I run an open mic. I've got people coming. Can I redirect them here? The other bar closed. He's like, yeah. He went to the back room, pulled out a mic stand, pulled out a mic, set it all up. And by the time my regulars all came down there, we had a place. We never missed a mic.
Damn. See, you've had tenacity from day one.
Yeah. Like, you have to. And it's not to say like I'm not frustrated. Right. I'm not going to lie and say I don't have those feelings of frustration or feel defeated every night. I'm human. Of course I do. Of course those things bother me. But at the same time, as much as they bother me, they drive me to get back. It's not how many times you get knocked down. It's how many times you get back up.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that process of moving from that low energy in shifting it? What is it that is that has people, successful people, particularly entrepreneurs and performers, what is the process that takes you from hell back to purgatory and above?
Jesus.
Yeah, I don't really know what else I would do. I believe in what I'm doing. I believe that Plauzzable can help a lot of people. I think it's, I just believe, I guess I'm a problem solver, whether I like it or not. It's like, okay, this is what is happening. There has to be a way around it. What is that way around it? Okay, this is the obvious choice. That's not working. This isn't like, I don't know. I can't continue taking no as an answer. It's like, okay, maybe I'll accept a no from this person or this person or this person. But if I knock on enough doors, eventually one of them is going to open. And when I look at very successful people, again, it's not overnight success. It's persistence. It is it's not even the most talented people that make it. It's people who can withstand, all of the no's. And I feel like a life in the arts or acting, most of the time, that's what our life is no's and rejections. And this part's not for you, that part's not for you. But the truth is my job as an actor is auditioning. And if I happen to get a call back, yay me, but there's a lot of reasons we might not get called back. It might be we're not good. It could be I'm not right for that role. It could be that person wasn't paying attention during my audition. They were texting. It could be I reminded them of their ex-wife. I don't know, but I don't always know what's going on in someone else's mind, or, I can't figure out whatever the reason the bar closed. That's not my problem. My problem is, how do I keep moving forward? And I just have to find a way to keep moving forward, because staying here is not good. So, yeah.
What's the difference between vulnerability and thick-skinnedness?
What? That doesn't make sense.
In the context of perseverance, of going against it every time you get the no, there's a guy who has a thick skin about it, or a woman. And then there's the opposite, in my view, of they're vulnerable enough to keep trying. And do you think that's a real distinction?
Yeah, I think what popped into my head is I think purpose, right? How what does it mean to you? If something's not that important to me, I'm not going to be persistent. If it doesn't truly matter to me, or maybe I don't truly believe that's for me, okay, if I were doing something related to football, I probably would have gave up a long time ago, because football isn't something I know, nor is it something I kind of care about. Sorry, no offense to football. I think there's obviously there's value to it. And I do watch the occasional stuff, but I'm just trying to find something I don't know anything about it. I'm not I don't have an attachment to it. So I think there's a difference there. So I'm more willing to be vulnerable to something, for something that really matters to me. And I've been doing comedy for so long, and I've spent so much time talking to other comedians and watching comedians and studying comedians and taking umpteen classes, some of them 2 and 3 times each, that I feel like I've put in the time and the hours, and I truly believe that I can help people, and I want to help people. And that is what motivates me. If I were to totally switch and get a job doing something else, and it didn't have something to do with comedy or something that I was so passionate about, I don't know. I mean, obviously a paycheck is an incentive, but to put the time and the years and the other things without the money, that's the question. Would you do this without the money? Because as an entrepreneur, you should expect that. Yeah.
Can I ask
well, here's what I'm wondering. Whitney Cummings put out her last special on OnlyFans TV. And part of what she said is she liked it because they weren't censoring her. There was no producer concern of, you can't say that, we're not going to put that out publicly. How is Plauzzable holding this whole realm of kind of cancel culture and a creative's desire for freedom of voice?
Yeah. So the way Plauzzable is set up is we're the software, right? And similar to Zoom or Google Meets, they're not telling you can or you can't do on this. We've created it specifically for comedy. And obviously within our terms of service, my legal team would say specifics about that. But we comply with the law on hate speech and things of that nature. But am I censoring people in the sense of you can't talk about politics or you can't talk about religion? No, I am not. I think that's another reason we put filters in, so that people can choose their preferences of what kind of comedy they could like. And then also at the end of each performance, when the host comedian closes the show or when a fan leaves the room, they get a pop-up box, leave your feedback. And it's not in general, it's not for Plauzzable, it's for each comedian. to give feedback and a star rating like you would a Yelp and be like, hey, I really like that you addressed this topic, or I really like the way you work the room, or I really, whatever that is. But the mode here is to be constructive and to talk about that. And also, if you don't like that comedian, don't go back to that comedian show, like make choices, people. Make choices.
There's a big distinction between what Canadian hate speech is and U.S. hate speech.
We're better at it.
Do you find that you have to go well,
I'm
the
sorry.
hate speech is the same, but the laws are different, is what I mean to say. And so my question is, do you have to go to the lowest common denominator for Canada as opposed to just having a general, policy that's the plausible policy? And how do you conform to different laws in different countries since it's a website and it's international?
That is an excellent question. I know our terms of service, we have lawyers here in the US and we're headquartered in the state of Washington. And so they put that together based on that. When it comes to compliance in other countries, that is a question I would honestly ask my legal team of how a situation like that, because I think it would be specific to the situation and an instance, and how that would be handled and where that, I don't know. Yeah.
Do you have their number?
I do.
I'm kidding. I just thought that was the funniest thing I could say.
We did have long discussions, and there was a lot of time spent researching this. And this is honestly a new area in so many ways, where these platforms, it's so new. And when we look at the lawmakers, they're not tech people. And so they don't have a full understanding of what tech provides. And so, we read in the news all of the time of these, what is going, how is this going to be regulated? How is this? And I think it's evolving and will continue to evolve as technology changes. And that's something that is very important. It's a very important part of tech, obviously, but I think there's a lot of instances and possibilities of what could happen versus what is actually happening.
I want to ask you a question about what you would tell up and coming or people who want to be comics. What are the first three or most key things that you would say to them as they enter into the plausible space or this endeavor of being funny?
I would say go for it. I say go to an open mic, take a class. We're going to be we have comedians who are going to be offering some classes on Plauzzable if that's of interest to you. A lot of people say that doing something online is a little bit less threatening, obviously. So, try it. You don't have to commit to a life in comedy like a lot of us have, just in order to do it. You can attend one mic and put it out there and see how that goes for you. I'm happy to say that the open mics and stuff that we have online are super positive. The community is very supportive. You don't have to create a comedian account if you want to do something like that. You can show up as a fan and do it. But it's a very different experience writing a joke than it is being funny in front of your friends. And oftentimes people are like, oh, my friends always tell me I'm funny. I should be a comedian. And comedians are like, oh, that hurts my soul.
Right.
But if you feel motivated, that's a lot of times all the push you need. And then you can learn the art form, because there is a lot to learn about writing a good joke. And for me, I think it's really fun. It's really fun.
And then you put your sense of humor against the meat grinder of what it really means to be a good comic writer.
Yes. And going back to your question about thick skin or vulnerability, I think you have to have a great combination of both. You have to be super vulnerable to put it out there and have a very thick skin when people tell you suck,
Yeah.
and be able to laugh like that. So.
Do you have a favorite joke, like just a quick one-liner that you've written that you really like that you can share with us?
Yeah, I have a corny one that I love to share. So flip-flops are what I consider to be the booty call of shoes. They're easy, they're convenient, but they're never there for you in the long run. So
I like it. That was solid.
So do you think that Chevy Chase was the last pratfall slapstick comedian to be successful? What happened to slapstick?
Yeah. I'm trying to think when you said chubby. I
Chris
think,
Farley was really good at slapstick.
yeah. I think there are still some people out there that are good.
What's his name? Elf.
Will Ferrell.
Will Ferrell's good at slapstick.
Yeah.
Even
And
Chris
what's the
Farley.
distinction? Like, it's physical comedy is kind of the heading, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But slapstick has this kind of pratfally kind of part to it.
Stooges? Yeah.
You know, I think the clowns of Cirque du Soleil use a lot of pratfall and commedia dell'arte.
Yes, they do. And I have one of my former instructors and friends when I was in Vegas studying, he actually studied in Ringling Brothers and came up that route in clowning and then became a professional clown, went through Second City, was a Second City performer, was fantastic, and then went on to write Cirque shows. And what I loved about him is a lot of times people think about physical comedy as being super like wacky, you know, right? But what I really learned from him is that his name was Joshua, and Joshua Zahner. And what I loved about him is he could walk on stage and just with a certain tilt of his head, completely take focus from everybody else on stage. He could do an entire scene without saying anything, and we'd just be mesmerized by him. And I think it's not necessarily being wacky, you know, but he brought it to it's having this presence. And I've just always had so much respect for that because he could do such speak so loudly without saying a word. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's powerful. Yeah, exactly. Poor little sad Mark.
Me, I'm very loud.
Mimes are the hidden genius of comedy. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, mimes are the hidden genius. Of course.
That's Robin Williams.
We must keep them locked in the closet. That is the place for mimes.
No, there was not like, you know,
The
like
glass closet, of course.
Yeah. I'm in this box. Why am I in this podcast still? So, yeah. See, I just speak loud and say nothing at all. That's me.
Oh, I bit my tongue right there.
Right? See, that goes back to, wait, is this little lady still talking? Let me go clean my bathroom.
That was where I was going to go. So have you heard from...
Mark dropped off. He's like, I got to go run an errand. I'll be back. She's still talking.
You got this, Leanne. Just close it out for our Moped Outlaws. We'll let you take the lap on your own.
No, I'm sorry. My goodness, you guys.
Speaking of which, have you ever ridden a moped?
Yes, I actually did and ran it right into a building.
Oh, nice. You should be appearing on our show.
Yeah, it was in Italy, and I don't know if you've ever ridden a moped in Italy. There are no rules of the road, and it's just like thousands of people.
So you decided to ride into a wall?
I was trying to park.
So it was this kind of a slow motion collision.
You hit the gas instead of stopping?
Yeah, a little bit. It was a big curb that I leapt over and then smacked into a building, and then people were like, "You stupid American!" And I'm like, "How'd they know?"
Wow, that is brilliant. That's a good story.
Yeah, thanks. That was hilarious. It cost me $450 to get my ID back and everything. The guy yelled at me for like 20 minutes. And the funny thing was he was yelling at me like, "Call your rich parents in America." I'm like, I'm 30 something years old. My parents are be like, "No."
So there's a backhanded compliment.
Yeah.
So did you really damage the body and the moped? Was it severely damaged? Is that why you had to pay $450, or was it just because they wanted to teach you a lesson?
Maybe all of the above. We did walk it back a couple miles. That's
significant. Yep.
Damn. Okay, so who were you with on this trip to Italy?
I was with my friend Stephanie. It was kind of one of those things where I decided like, I'm going to take a trip. And this is after a second divorce. And I was like laying on the floor, fetal position, like, this feels terrible. Why is this happening? And then I was like, I need to change my life. I need to change me. So I'm going to do everything different. And I'm going to make a list of all the things I thought I should do and never did because I thought I should be married instead. So I was like, I should go to Europe. So I went into work and I was pulling building permits at the county, and the girl who always worked the counter and approved my permits for building was Stephanie. And so we're just chit-chatting. She's like, what's new? I'm like, I'm going to Europe. She's like, where? And I'm like, Italy. She was like, oh, I've always wanted to go. I'm like, you want to go? And she's like, sure. I go, she's like, when are you going? I go, July. I just made it all up. And she's like, okay, when? And I go, I don't know, pick a date. She goes, all right. And the next day she's like, I got time off. I was like, oh, I bet. Okay. And I got a Frommer's guide because it's before the internet. And then I faxed a hotel reservation, which I found out when we got there that they never got. So we just showed up.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you didn't have a reservation when you got there?
No. And it was peak season, I found out. July is peak season for holiday in Europe.
What was that, a healing experience? Just sort of this off the cuff adventure?
Yeah, it was actually really, really fun. Again, it's like you don't know what you don't know. And I learned a lot through that. And we really lucked out. We ended up finding a place to stay in these really cool little bed and breakfasts and things like that by chance. So we really lucked out, but we had a blast. And it's funny because I only knew Stephanie through work, through the, when I pulled these building permits, right. And we had never hung out before. And people were like, oh, you guys have been best friends for life, or your sisters, or you're related or something. And we're like, nope. We had the best time. And then we never really hung out again, but we had.
Really? That's wild.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. What an adventurous person you are.
Yeah.
I'm going to build a whole comedy platform that's exactly my specs. I can do that. And I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And, this is kind of a left turn. Hang on to your headphones. I want to know if you think there's something about your ability as a coach that makes you a better comedian. Is there an intersection between understanding human dynamics and understanding and writing good comedy? And the show killed itself.
Why did I get a coffee? Yeah. So you mean because you know that I was doing coaching for a while, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you did your research. I think it definitely helped. And it's really funny that you asked that. You're really making me think, because when I had been doing comedy for so many years, and then when I started podcasting, I created this podcast that is called like Life, Laughter, Divorce. I thought, everybody's got a divorce story. This is going to be so funny. I did. I was like, this is like, nobody's doing this. Why is nobody doing this? Probably because but I thought it was this brilliant idea. And I'm like, we're going to do this podcast. So I booked a bunch of guests, like 3, a bunch. And I recorded them all within like 24 hours of each other, whatever. And my now husband was with me because he's like doing all the audio and everything. And he was like, so what do you think? And I'm like, well, that wasn't what I expected. And he's like, nope. I'm like, no energy. So sad. People were telling me the worst, like the horrific stories of like domestic abuse and like just so many bad things. And I'm like, this isn't funny. And these are comedians that I'm talking to. And so I instantly went on the internet and I'm like, how do I learn how to talk to people on a different level? Because I don't want it to feel forced, like, ha, 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 you know.
He hit you again.
Yeah, like, jail, all these things. And I was like, how do I need to obviously I'm so used to talking at people from a stage. I need to learn how to talk with people. And that's actually what spurred my interest in coaching. And I started researching. I knew I didn't want to be a divorce coach because I don't want to like encourage that behavior also. But I knew I wanted to do something, and I ended up reaching out to a woman. Her name is Deanna, Coach Deanna at Coachville, and we had the most wonderful conversation. I'm like, I felt so like I got off the phone. I'm like, I feel like I know this person for my entire life. I'm like, that's what I want to do. I want to make people feel safe and taken care of in a conversation. And how can I do that? And I ended up spending years going through coach training with Coachville, and it was just wonderful. And I find that it's improved relationships and the way I talk to people and show up for things. You're like, I haven't seen any of that here in our podcast.
Yeah, when I was just going to say, how does that make you a better comedian? Because I want to know.
Yeah, so I think it makes me feel better in the sense of the way I read a room, or the way I watch and observe and learn from other people and their stuff. I think I listen differently to that degree and pay attention to things maybe I overlooked before.
All right, here's another left turn. We're going to build a box here, box you in. What have you adapted about yourself that is bringing success to your third marriage that you didn't have in your first and second?
Duct tape and bungee cords.
It works, you know. Hey, if it works.
For you or for them?
Him. I can't get away now. Yeah, in a basement with a lock and key.
That's right.
We actually did the podcast together, and he has never been married before. But I spent a lot of time really working on how I was showing up. And like, let's say if we've had an argument or something, I would say, can we put pause on this? And I can go and like think about my response, because I know if I respond the way I've always responded to these situations, I'd probably destroy it. I'm not kidding. And I would actually go phone a friend. I'm like, I get that phone a friend helpline or something and be like, I want to say this, but what other options are there? And then walk through them. And I started really paying attention to my reactions to things, or if I would get bothered by something or things that would normally bother me. I just started taking a really hard look at that instead. And I had told him up front, like when we first met, because we met at a Starbucks, and I had said, I just got out of a kind of a really terrible situation, and I don't want to do that again. So here's where I'm at. And if you're just like, don't mess with me, I don't need any extra drama in my life. And he's like, no, I'm cool. And went along for the ride. And, it wasn't always easy for him, because he's like, you're not saying anything. I'm like, oh, you don't want me to.
This isn't a good moment.
Not say anything for once. And so I think it's just me. I really took a long, hard look at myself. Yeah.
Man,
it's so lovely to talk to you. I just want to keep asking more questions.
I know, right? Exactly. Leanne,
are you good to go a little further, Leanne?
Yeah. Ask away.
Awesome. What are like some of the biggest bombs moments that you've had?
There are so many. You asked how much time I have. I have all day now.
It's like one of the most memorable ones, and what about it was so devastating and soul crushing?
Yeah, one of the biggest stupidest situation. Like, people ask me, and this always is the first thing that comes to my mind. My friend Roland and I, we had taken classes together at the Second City in Las Vegas, and of course, when you're in improv classes, what do? You put together this improv group. And so we immediately put together this group and all about matching t-shirts or something, because that's what you do, because that's going to make it a good show. Color
what people are looking for, the t-shirts.
Yeah. And I was super excited. I'm like, I'm going to go book shows. So I booked a show for like, I don't know, the Lions Club or something. And they were paying us. Like we were horrible. We were like level 1, but we thought we were rock stars. We're like, watch this magic translate, take place. So I booked this. I think I booked this. It was like a Lions Club. There were hundreds of people. It was outside in a parking lot and it rained that day in Las Vegas. Right. And nobody in Las Vegas knows how to behave in the rain. And because we booked this, but we had like 6 or 7 people in our troupe, our improv troupe, and 2 of us, Roland and I, showed up. The rest of them, not to be seen nor heard. And we're like, wow, how is it that we booked a show and promised like this cast? And 2 of us are here, and Roland and I are standing outside this fence looking into this. It's one of those, what do you call a cyclone fence? And we're just like hanging on the little wires and looking in, and we're like, we've got
lambs to the slaughter.
Yeah. And we're like, wow. I go, we have to. And he had been doing stand up for years. And he's like, I guess we could go in. I'm like, let's go for it. And we went in, and, we have to do all the scene work with 2 of us. And it's just hundreds of people, and they hand us a microphone. You don't improvise with microphones. And so here we are with a microphone, like, hey, back and forth, like, how are you? I am fine. Isn't this a funny situation? Yes, it is. And all these people are yelling, we can't hear you. And we're just like, is our time up yet? It was like wacka, wacka, wacka. Wow. Like, now.
Oh,
it was
painful.
And I think the guy finally just took the mic. He's like, and goodbye.
Wow. Did you get paid?
Yeah. We got paid. We're like, we got paid. But we were so angry that these other people didn't show up. I'm like, I will never book them another thing. So then fast forward, I think I booked us at a halftime show for a basketball game. Also a terrible idea. Nobody wants to do anything but hear some music or see some cheerleaders at halftime. But here's like 6 of us. And we get there and everybody's like, this is a bad idea, Leanne. This is a bad idea. I'm like, this is so cool. Look at all hundreds of people in the bleachers. And they're like, nope. And we get down there and they're like, and now we have, I think we're called the Sandbox Association. The Sandbox Association is coming down here to perform. And we get down there, and again, like, no microphones in a gymnasium with like people milling about, going to the bathroom and getting hot dogs. I don't know what was happening. And we get down and they're like, that was the worst humiliation of our lifetime. I'm like, but we have matching t-shirts.
I love it how you tell these stories about how you bombed, and they're just hilarious stories.
Oh my God, they're ridiculous. If someone asks me like, what's your best time? I'm like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. Which is like all the worst things that could possibly happen. We also did a show for, I don't know, a private show. And we had like a really well-known comedian that we were opening for. And we tanked the whole show. And we're like, and there's the stage for you.
There you go. We'll help you clean up.
Did you get shit from the comedian?
No, he's super professional, very well known, and did he was just like, he forgot about us as quickly as.
You know what I've noticed? I've done a little stand-up, and I've noticed how someone who's really good can warm up any room.
Yeah.
I've seen like a room that was just dead for 40 minutes and a guy hops on or a girl hops on and kills. And you're like, wow, that's what practice does.
So true. And practice is everything. Yeah.
I want to ask you about the technique behind writing a good joke. Like, what's the short version of what the process of writing a good joke is?
A big eraser. Like, seriously, get economical with your words. The worst thing, like, I do this, I'm guilty of this. And anytime I go off script and like try to like throw some extra stuff in there, it's terrible. Writing a good joke can start like, I do like a thought dump, like, here's an idea, and I write it all down, right? And a lot of people will come to a mic like, I have this idea or this funny thing happened. And then they tell us this really long story and it takes us 5 minutes to get there. And Mark has gone to the bathroom twice and come back. And we're still not at the funny thing yet. Right. And so it's really important to be economical with our words and get to the point. We should have a laugh every minute or so. I don't know. There's like different people say different things, but I should not have to wait that long for the payoff. And so when I write a joke and I write it all out, then I go back and I'm like, where is the funny? What is actually making this funny? And I get rid of everything that isn't contributing or setting it up and knocking it out of the park there. Like if I told the joke about flip-flops or what I consider to be the booty call of shoes, if I said, hey, I wear flip-flops a lot, you know what flip-flops are? Flip-flops are kind of like a booty call. Stop talking, Leanne. It's like, shorten that up. Get to the point. People have an attention span of a gnat, and then they're easy, they're convenient, they're there for you in the long run. I don't need you to explain each one of those things to me. But I may have written 4 or 5 pages, like working out what words, what word order, what sentences can I eliminate? What's not important? What is the point? What's actually funny to get 2 sentences that go back to back. And also the other big thing that I think is important in joke telling is if I can't repeat it word for word, then to me, it's not a good joke because I have to get up on stage and say it without having to think about it. And if I have to think or search my mind for clunky words or things, and writing, once I write it, then I have to practice saying it because we often write for reading, but we don't write for speaking. And if I say something and I trip over the words all the time, that means I have to rewrite it because now I've just ruined the joke. So I have to write for the way I'm going to speak. So then I have to go back and maybe alter some things, switch some words around and see what word I land on. So to me, it's a fun game of wordplay and rearranging a room.
Would you say most of your work for you personally happens off stage or on stage?
I say probably the majority is off stage because it's a lot of coming up with the ideas, working it out, writing it, going to open mics, polishing it, that kind of stuff. And then the on stage is a smaller percentage of that. And I think that always goes back to like even being an actor. The majority of my time is spent rehearsing, auditioning, putting myself out there. And then the small part of that is actually booking the gig and doing the gig.
Right.
Yeah.
But it could go, like I've heard Tig Notaro say that most of her work happens at the open mic on stage. She'll have a seed of an idea, then she goes out on the stage and works it out.
Yes. So to the point of being on stage, if I wasn't including an open mic as like being a on stage performance, but yes. So I include open mics as part of my writing process. And so that on stage, I agree with her. Like that a lot happens at an open mic and working that out. An actual performance or a book show, I should have that pretty dialed in.
Right. Yeah. So you are saying that you'll take seeds of ideas onto an open mic and that the brunt of the work happens in that live moment.
Yeah, it can. I've done that quite a bit on some of the online open mics that I've been doing, more than I used to in person. So yeah, I can see that. And I see that with a lot with other comedians as well. They do, even when I was running a room in person all those years, I think it depends on the person. Sometimes people like to write it out first and other people, they'll be like, I'm just going to riff. I think what I've been hearing from comedians now is a newer generation of comedians are like, I'm just going to riff and write as I speak it. And they're like, oh, like this is painful. Not that it can't be done, but not everybody is good at it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crowd work is a reflection of that kind of rickles and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And crowd work is a very controversial topic among comedians. I think it's become popular, my opinion. I think it's become popular because comedians don't want to put their well-written jokes out on social media. Because if I put all my material on social media or YouTube, why would you pay to come see me to do the same stuff? But if I do some crowd work, that I might not repeat. So therefore, I can throw that out there for free. So I think I see a lot more of that than I used to. And, is it funny? How much of that is funny? Would you pay to see an hour of that? That's debatable, because again, I think, like you say, like Don Rickles, like there's certain people who are really good at it, and there are certain people who just think talking to other people is interesting. Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's time for our question.
All right, let's do it.
Oh.
Okay, so this is our final question. It's very important to Mark and I. It's what we wrap up all our episodes with. But before we do that, is there anything that you'd like to bring up or throw out, promote? As we said earlier, like plauzzable.com, Plauzzable. That's the platform. Do you have your own website also, or is that primarily what?
I mean, you can look at me at leannelinsky.com, but that's
Why?
Why? You can look at everybody else on plauzzable.com, right? Like I would just say, go to plauzzable.com, get some laughs, create a free account, check it out. Nothing to hurt, nothing to download. So.
Well, and while you're listening to this on Monday, the 15th of January, 2024, you could do that and go right in and hear Leanne tonight showcase a bunch of great comics on this platform. So we highly encourage you to take the time, all 8 of you, and do that.
Yeah.
Mom, Dad. All right, before we do ask our final question, I'm wondering right now, because to me, comedy is a bit like music. Like my favorite music, it depends on the moment, the time. But right now, who are some comedians that you're really vibing with, that you're enjoying?
Wow. Honestly, there's not anybody that I'm not. And I'd say that
everyone sucks. Okay, Leanne Linsky said.
Yeah, everybody's no. No, I know there's nobody that I wouldn't listen to now. I am a big fan of, I love listening to people I've never heard of, people that are in the press a lot, why people think, this person is doing this or off the rails on that. Like I listen to all of it. I learn from all of it, and I have mad respect for everybody who's out there doing it, honestly. Yeah.
All right.
So here's the big question.
Mm-hmm.
Eminem.
Are you proposing? Because I always say yes.
Yeah, we
Eminem.
propose to married people.
Eminem or Foo Fighters?
Oh. I like both. I'm a big fan of Dave Grohl. Yeah. I'm a big fan. We wanted to see if he would marry us when we were getting married. We had both just finished his book. So yeah, did you read his book? It's amazing.
Oh yeah. Foo Fighters then.
Yeah.
So you're choosing Foo Fighters.
Do you want to expand on that other than the marriage proposal thing?
Well, it's funny. Like before I moved to Seattle, I probably would have said Eminem. Because I do like Eminem and I like all of his music. And then when we got to Seattle, I became, so my husband is a big Nirvana fan already, and Foo Fighters. He's a big fan of Dave Grohl. And so then when we landed here in Seattle, suddenly everything Seattle started coming up, and I started like reading all of these books about Nirvana and all the stuff. And then I read Dave Grohl's book. And when I read his book, I'm like, oh my God, what an amazing human being. Like it just, yeah. And all the things that he does and the way, like, I love watching him compete with one young girl who's a drummer. Yeah. She's amazing. I love watching stuff like that. And just the way he interacts with his fans. I'm a fan. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, what I love about Dave Grohl is his mom and how she just gave him the support and freedom to cut loose when a lot of parents are like, no, you're 15. You're not going in a van on the road.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really cool.
And I love that he keeps kind of evolving as an artist himself, and all of the things that they're doing and the different things they're doing with the recordings. And like, I think they went back to Chicago and did a bunch of different stuff. And I'm just like experimenting, changing things up. So I'm like, wow, that's really cool. Like, he's not continuing like, this is me and I'm going to do the same thing over and over and over and over again, but he's constantly, doing something different.
And talk about
In that vein,
challenges,
Yes.
sit on the floor, crippled up, and stands back up.
Yep.
in that vein, was just announced that a local concert venue or festival here in the San Francisco Bay Area called Bottle Rock, a band called Chevy Metal, is going to be performing at Bottle Rock. And Chevy Metal was Taylor Hawkins's band, and they're going to perform, and Dave's going to perform with them
as a drummer.
Well, I don't know exactly, but he's making sure that Chevy Metal does not fall apart, and so they're doing a set here at Bottle Rock I think it's in May in Napa area. If you want to catch the Chevy Metal, they're way down on the list. I had to go through a bunch of different those posters with the 45 names in it. And I was like, what? Chevy Metal? Wow. Right.
Yeah. So, you asked, I know that was the last question, and I'd just like to bring it back to when you asked about vulnerability and thick skin. And I think Dave Grohl is a very example of a person who wears both well, because he continues to bring his vulnerability to his art and his music and doing those things. But boy, to keep getting back up after all of the hard times that he's encountered and witnessed and experienced in his own life is pretty tremendous. And so when it comes down to having those two things, his bigger purpose keeps driving him forward.
Yeah, I agree. And I just want to say that as someone who is very much a monogamist, that I want to commend you and acknowledge you for going for a third marriage. I love that you love that much. That speaks to me in a deep way.
Oh, well, thank you. I also throw a heck of a wedding.
Well, let us know when your next one is, and we'll.
No, I'm done. I've found me a keeper. I am good. I've practiced enough. This is a real deal. Yeah.
It's hella funny. You live up in Washington, Seattle. You guys met in a Starbucks. He's a huge Nirvana, Dave Grohl fan. There's so much drawing you to Seattle.
I know, weird. And we met in California, and yet we're both from the Midwest. We've had so many weird crisscrosses in our life. I'm surprised we didn't meet earlier. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, thank you so much for being our guest on Moped Outlaws. This has been quite a ride, Leanne. Thank you so much. And to all our listeners, be sure and go to our website, sign up for Plauzzable as well, and then check out our merch. Be sure and order some swag for yourself. And if you're watching on YouTube, click those buttons. We need more. We are going to keep going. We are on this ride till death do us part, I think, Greg. And we are in for the long haul. Join us on this wild adventure. Thanks so much, Leanne, for being with us. And I look forward to seeing you on tonight on the 15th.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This has been an absolute pleasure.
Recording stopped.